Now, Austria has officially taken over its six-month presidency of the European Council from Bulgaria. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz, who is known for his hardline views on migration, will lead the Council until the end of the year. So, what direction will the bloc in the midst of a migration crisis take with Austria at the reins? Live in Brussels with more is Euronews correspondent Brian Carter. Brian, tell us what this all means, Austria's presidency of the EU.
Well, as you said, Tessa, they just took over from Bulgaria. The rotating presidency is an institution within the EU Council that basically sets the agenda, organizes and chairs the meetings and the working groups, basically all the work that goes on behind the scenes. Now, ever since the famous Lisbon Treaty of 2007, which created the permanent position of President of the Council, currently assumed by Donald Tusk, the rotating presidency has lost some of its political role, but it still carries a lot of influence. And then, of course, the type of government in place in the country that has the presidency has influence in the way the agenda will be set. And the current government in Austria is made up of the Conservative Party of Chancellor Sebastian Kurz and of the far-right Freedom Party of Austria, the FPO. So clearly they have a very strong stance on migration, very anti-migrant rhetoric, and this translates into their presidency. The theme of the presidency is a Europe that protects, and the first item on their agenda, their first priority, is to fight against illegal migration by securing external borders. So clearly migration will be the #1 issue over the next 6 months with this Austrian presidency. They also want to talk about competitiveness and neighborhood policy with the EU, with the Western Balkan states. But it's also likely that over the next 6 months we'll see a lot of discussions and work around the EU budget, the next EU budget, and of course Brexit.
A lot of work as you talk about there. Brian, briefly, how will the other EU leaders receive this Austrian presidency?
Well, quite well, actually. There's been a clear shift in discourse between 2015 and now, when some measures back then were deemed unacceptable, such as these so-called disembarkation platforms for migrants, are now completely acceptable. One MEP I talked to actually called it the Orbanization of politics, after, of course, Viktor Orban of Hungary. And Sebastian Kurz is actually very close to the Visegrad group and to their anti-migrant stance and their strong approach to migration. But there's still a lot of questions regarding the agreement that was found here by EU leaders on Thursday and Friday. What are these controlled centers? What are these disembarkation platforms? Basically, they're just another way of saying detention camps. But there's still a lot of discussion, a lot of uncertainty as to where they will be and which country will accept to host them. Austria clearly indicated that they were not interested, and there's still no step forward made in two of the key issues, which are the Dublin regulation and the secondary movement of migrants. So Austria will try to, of course, will have a lot of work trying to deal with these two issues. Tessa?
All right. Thank you for that. Brian Carter reporting there from Brussels. Thanks.